I saw this clip on TikTok the other day, and it was Joe Rogan. He was like, imagine there's a documentary crew just following you around, capturing your success story. They want to know how it happened. Like, how'd you get there? What would you do? What would you do if that was happening? For me, vlogging is that. And I don't think, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who believe in themselves enough to say, today's the day that I'm going to start capturing that documentary, who are willing to take this past just imagining to actually doing.
Deliberate cold exposure has a very powerful effect on the release of dopamine in our brain and body. And this is one of the main reasons why people continue to do deliberate cold exposure. Basically, it makes us feel good, and it continues to make us feel good even after we get out of the cold environment. In fact, some people would say they don't feel good in the cold environment. It's all stress for them, but afterwards they feel great. Deliberate cold exposure seems to cause a dramatic increase in dopamine, and this has actually been substantiated in a really beautiful study entitled Human Physiological Responses to Immersion into Water of Different Temperatures. Norepinephrine in the blood increased 530%. These are huge increases in norepinephrine, so it suggests that this is a stressful stimulus, at least neurochemically speaking, stressful. The subjects also experienced a 250% increase in dopamine concentrations, which, while not 530% as it was with norepinephrine, is still a very large increase in baseline levels of dopamine. And what was interesting is that those increases in dopamine persisted for a very long period of time afterwards.
I believe that most human beings are only living at about 40% of their capability. So the mind has a governor, like a car. If you're driving a car and the car has a governor on it, the car may say 130 miles an hour, but the governor is set for 91. Once that governor sets in, you get to 91, that car starts doing this. The car wants to go. The car wants to go, but that factory said, we're not going past 91. We have a factory, a nice governor in our brain, and it's a survival mechanism. It protects us from pain and suffering. The second we feel that, our mind says, oh no, this isn't fun. We should back off. We should sit down, find something more comfortable. And there's something about the mind. The mind has the tactical advantage over you.
This is what I have found. To let ourselves be seen, deeply seen, vulnerably seen. To love with our whole hearts, even though there's no guarantee. To practice gratitude and joy. And the last, which I think is probably the most important, is to believe that we're enough. Because when we work from a place, I believe, that says, I'm enough, then we stop screaming and start listening. We're kinder and gentler to the people around us, and we're kinder and gentler to ourselves.
One of the reasons why the 5-second rule is so unbelievably empowering from the moment you first start using it is because it turns you into the kind of person who stops talking and starts moving. It turns you into the kind of person who operates with a bias toward action. If you tend to overthink every move, you're about to discover the energy and the confidence to stop thinking and start moving. Using the 5-second rule is going to strengthen your belief that you do have the ability to control your own fate. And you know how it does it? Because it pushes you to prove it to yourself one move at a time.
There was a study that came out 2 years ago that asked, why do we quit? If you set, 800 or even 500 pounds on the bar out there, I can't lift it. So I'm not talking about that kind of quitting. I'm talking about a long run. Why do I quit? And it turns out that for every bit of effort, any bit of effort, lifting a glass of water or running up a hill or in a fight, there are little bits of adrenaline that are released in the brain and body. And there's a counter. There's a cell type, which are called glia. And these cells are paying attention to how much norepinephrine is coming. And if it hits a certain threshold, the brain stops voluntary control over the musculature, says, that's it, I quit. And there are these beautiful experiments where they manipulate the visual environment so that they're certain that this isn't lack of muscle fuel. This is lack of neural fuel. Dopamine pushes back that level of noradrenaline and it gives you more gas. It lets you go further.
Putting off something you know you need to do can be cumulatively demoralizing and wasteful of time and energy. Use self-hypnosis to create a mental map that is doable in a finite available amount of time. Accomplishing 5% of a big project leaves you feeling a whole lot better than finding excuses to avoid it.
It's very clear that quality social connection is extremely powerful in terms of its ability to increase our levels of happiness. What is quality social connection? Quality social connection falls into a number of different bins. This can be romantic connection, this can be friendship, this can even be coworker or just daily superficial interaction type connections.
You always control whether you give your best or not. No one can stop you from that. You don't have to end up number one in your class or win everything every time. In fact, winning is not particularly important. What does matter is that you gave everything, because anything less is to cheat the gift of your potential, the gift of the opportunity, the gift of the craft you have been introduced to, the gift of the responsibility entrusted to you, the gift of the instruction in the time of others, the gift of life itself.
I cannot imagine what you must have been experiencing. Oh, my word. Have fun.
If sleep weren't a normal thing, it would be a banned substance.